variable cost. To get the total cost, we are calculating variable cost plus total fixed cost, right? Variable cost is given in the problem as $4 multiplied by 100,000. $2 multiplied by 100,000. That will be for, that is 600,000. Master budget amount. Now coming to the concept. 600,000 is the budget, expected budget, planned budget. When we are comparing actual and flexible budget, what is it? Favorable variance of 85,000. Why? Because when you are looking at the actual, now you are looking at the flexible budget and the master budget. How this will be? Looking at flexible budget and master budget, flexible budget is less than the master budget. So under whose budget operating income will be higher and lower? This should have been the flexible budget means this should have been the cost that at the year end when adjusted with the actual quantity, right? Income will be higher under flexible budget than in static budget. Obviously, it is a favorable amount. What? 80,000. You get the concept. The favorable, unfavorable portion you have to look at with the mindset of operating income. Fixed cost. Just look at whether it is operating income is higher or lower. If it is revenue, same, higher or lower. So favorable or unfavorable depends upon the effect on impact that is going to come on operating income. Right? Operating income means what? What is operating income? Sales less cost, we get gross profit. Gross profit less operating expenses, we get the operating income. That's it. So salaries and wages is a part of operating expenses which we are reducing from the gross profit, and then what we get is the operating. So obviously when we are looking at the total fixed cost, we are talking about the manufacturing cost, so TFC, total fixed cost and the total variable cost. So obviously when I have explained about the previous example about salary is the operating expenses is coming under operating expenses. Then we are reducing that from the gross profit, what we get is the operating. So just have a look at the impact. Now what I explained in this scenario, in this example is clear the difference between all these three budgets and how are they interconnected. Right. Now let's look at a statement wise example. I didn't explain it in the last session. I was just trying to explain this scenario. Budget. Now let's look at a practical question. Looking only at the operating income of this actual budget and master budget, is it favorable or unfavorable? Looking at the operating income, unfavorable by what amount? 34,000. 34,000 unfavorable. Dresses sold. Units sold. Is it favorable or unfavorable? Unfavorable. And amount is just about minus, so forget about it. Sales. Unfavorable. Variable cost. Unfavorable. No. Favorable. One actually is lesser than the budget. Contribution margin. Unfavorable. Fixed cost. Unfavorable. Now are you getting me? Now, flexible budget. Prepare flexible budget. What is flexible budget? Actual quantity adjusted for standard rate. Actual quantity is 5,000. Standard rate is how much? How do we find out standard rate? $300,000 divided by $6,000 for every cost or everything, right? So $300,000 divided by 6,000 is $50. So how much is the revenue under flexible budget? 5,000 multiplied by 50. That is $250. $100,000, right? Okay, I'll just show you the calculation. So to get the standard rate, what we did is we divided $300,000 divided by $6,000, 6,000 units. Revenue divided by units sold. Yes, what we got is $50 as per the formula of flexible budget. Actual quantity multiplied by standard rate. We got is $100,000. Now, if the question is asking you to calculate sales volume variance, and you have given what you got in the question is this chart, this data, and if they ask you to calculate sales volume variance, it is typically the difference between static budget and flexible budget for operating income. If the question is asking you to specifically calculate sales volume variance, you have to compare between master budget and the flexible budget for operating income. That is what we have to do. So typically you have to make the same statement once again for flexible budget that you have to do. Now, I'm just taking an example or a comparison between master budget and a flexible budget. Is it favorable or unfavorable between master budget and static budget? Because your revenue is less than the master budget, which is unfavorable. Yeah. Variable cost, how do we find out? 1,80,000 divided by 6,000 multiplied by 5,000. I think it's $30. $30 multiplied by 100. This is going to be 1,50,000. Right, just cross check with this 1,50,000. Yeah. All good. 180,000 divided by 1,000. Yeah. Okay. Now, yeah. So between flexible budget and master budget, is it favorable or unfavorable? Favorable. It is favorable. It is favorable. Why? Because the cost is reduced, operating income is increasing. What is the variable cost? Here, why it is unfavorable? Why sales is unfavorable between master budget and flexible budget? The sales is decreasing, obviously operating income will decrease. Contribution margin, same. I think 250 minus 150 is 100,000. Profit is increasing, it is unfavorable. Sales minus variable cost. If you decrease, if you deduct all the variable cost from the sales, what we get is contribution margin. Don't worry, we are covering the contribution margin in part 2 in detail. Fixed cost, same. Yes. Tell me how much is the operating income? I think it's $20,000. Is the online team seeing all this? Because I'm not checking on here. I'm hoping it's okay. Yeah. 100, no, it's 100,000 minus 80, 20,000. Yeah. 20,000. Yeah. Yeah, tell me. So I'm asking you to calculate sales volume variance. And okay, so the comparison is between master budget and flexible budget. Yeah. So it is favorable or unfavorable? Unfavorable. Why? Because operating income is less. Budget should have been 20,000, but we kept a budget for 40,000. It is lower. What we discussed here in this example, when yeah, doing this. This is cost. We have discussed here that if flexible budget is having a lower cost, under flexible budget, if the cost is having lower cost, obviously the operating income will be higher. Right? In master budget, the cost is higher, that's why operating income is lesser. So what should have been the actual cost? Under flexible budget, it should have been the actual cost. This should have been the actual cost. This should have been, but we planned for 600,000, which is 80,000 more. So obviously we are getting a favorable cost of $80,000. Same goes here. This should have been what? We planned for $40,000, but this when we adjusted for the actual quantity, we got a lesser operating income of $20,000. That is why it is unfair. This is about thought process. There is no particular formula to it. So understand the concept very well. We budgeted for a $40,000 operating income, but when we adjust it for the actual quantity or the standard rate, we get a lesser operating income, which is unfavorable. Here, the flexible budget is less than master. Here, this is cost, that is operating income. Okay, so yeah. Here, the flexible budget is less than master budget. This is a cost. This is cost. This example is for cost. This is favorable. This is for income. Now I will give you a problem to solve. Okay, now they are looking at the problem. They are asking for fixed cost variance for the November month. Fixed cost variance is this. What is the answer? A. What was the answer? Unfavorable. A is the answer. Okay. Now I want you to solve a problem. Actually. Can you solve this? No, yeah. Yeah. Solve for flexible budget. Flexible budget. I'm already answered it. Yeah. Solve for flexible budget and tell me the difference between the difference coming here in the operating income. I want this data to be filled. This we have taken up for cost. Now I want the data for operating income. Same question. It's already given. I mean, just have to do that. That's it. is the operating income for actual? No, the amount. I'm asking the amount. No, where is it favorable? So, operating for actual results. What is the actual result for operating? How do you solve this? 75,000 multiplied by $15. And what we get is revenue. Revenue minus. Ah. So, it's, oh. 1125. 7 for actual. This is for actual. Actual, this is the operating income under actual. How do you solve this? I want the revenue. How much is the revenue? 75,000 multiplied by $15. What we get is the revenue 1125,000. Now for the variable cost. How much is the variable cost? They have given for per unit. 9.25 multiplied by 75,000. 9.25 multiplied by 75,000. 6,9,3,7,50 variable cost. What we get is the contribution margin. Sales minus variable cost, what we get is the contribution margin. How much is that? 431,250. Right? Then we reduce the fixed cost. It is already given, that is 2,85,000. 2,85,000. Why 2,85,000? And why not 2,80,000? I have taken 2,85,000 and why not 2,80,000? Because you have calculating the actual. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, how much is the operating income under actual? 146,250. So we got the data for actual 146,250. Same for static budget. How much is that? Same method. 1, 2, 3 is the sales. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 0. 1,000. Plus 490 and it's 212. That is the operating income? Yeah, operating 212. 212. This is the operating income. 212. This is the operating income. Flexible, is it? Actual quantity into standard.
75,000 multiplied by 15 multiplied by 19.
For actual, we take the fixed cost as actual, right? For standard. See, for flexible, we are taking the budgeted amount. Like 170. Price 170. Why are we taking this amount for flexible budget? 2,80,000. Why are we taking 2,80,000 for flexible budget? Because it's the master. Because we are adjusting the standard cost for the actual quantity. Are you getting my point? This is the standard cost. What is the specialty of fixed cost? Total fixed cost will be the same for any level of output, any level of activity. That is called the relevant range. Relevant range, what is that relevant range? If you are producing and selling between 70,000 to 85,000, your fixed cost will be that. What is fixed cost? Rent, insurance, depreciation, everything will be coming into that relevant range, right? If it is going beyond that, obviously your fixed cost will change. So that is why in actual means the real life scenario, obviously the fixed cost will keep on changing. That is why the difference that is why the difference amount is coming here because of the question. The question is telling you that actually the fixed cost is changing. But since we are preparing for flexible budget, use 280 because we are adjusting the actual quantity for the standard cost, standard rate. That is why we are taking 280 because fixed cost will be same for both the budget. But we are preparing budget rate, not preparing the actual rate. We are only under flexible budget. We are only adjusting the actual quantity. We are not doing anything for the standard cost. Standard cost is there on it. Same thing we are copy pasting. That's it. So yeah. So under flexible budget, what is the operating income? 170,000. This is the operating income. Now comparison happens. We are preparing variance report. Between actual and flexible, is it favorable or unfavorable? Unfavorable. Why? Because operating income is less. In the actual operating income is lesser. It is unfavorable. Okay, difference you find out. Between actual and master budget. Also unfavorable. Why? Because actually operating income is less. Between flexible budget and master budget, favorable or unfavorable? Why? Because operating income under flexible budget is lower compared to what we estimate. Obviously, this is clear. Now go back. When you're going back, read again why unfavorable, favorable. Okay. Beyond this, there is no other cause. Coming back to the next topic, this is level 1. Okay, what we discussed right now was level 1 variance. So when the question is about sales volume variance, you compare between master budget and flexible budget. When the question is asking about static budget variance, you have to compare between actual and static budget or master budget, whatever that is it. Alright? Any doubt? When they are asking for flexible budget variance, comparison should be between actual budget and flexible budget. That is already covered. Okay, so these are the questions that is likely to come. Sales volume variance, static budget variance, and flexible budget variance. Typically, they are asking for the difference between operating income. That's it. That should be the typical question that you can expect. But this is level 1 variance. Hardly comes in exam. This is just the basics. Now coming to Okay, that's it. Now coming to the level 3 variants, or we can call it manufacturing input variants. We can go to Hawk material. It's a theory portion. I mean, this can have go through this clear. Yeah, just simple scenario. This is the static budget variance between actual results and static budget. Okay. If you can go to Hawk, page number 296. Page number 296 under Hawk. But that book. One certain mistake here. Mistake. Yeah, there is a mistake in the example. After calculating. This is wrong? Yeah. Can I solve it here? Ma'am also said. Who? Ma'am also said. So this is an example of Stanford. Okay, page number 196. New Star Corporation has prepared its annual business plan for year one. Organization anticipated means budgeted. This is budgeted amount of 10,000 units. And of its products, 15 piece. That means this is the budgeted selling price. This is the budgeted selling quantity. Would be the contribution margin would be 20% of the sales. So contribution margin is 20% of the total sales. Fixed cost is $25,000. Okay. 2 units sold is 8,000 for totaling 112. Variable expenses materialized is 118. Wait, okay, under 100. Okay, fixed cost is 24,000. Okay. Okay. find out how the difference between budgeted. So let's see. Budget and actual. Okay, so this is 1 and this is 2. And this is 3, 1 minus 2. Yeah, so under budget, revenue is 150, but in actual, we are getting a lesser revenue, which is why it is called as a unfavorable variance, which is in a, that is why it is in a negative amount. For revenue, unfavorable variance will be negative amount. Negative revenue. For revenue. Talking about revenue, not expense. For revenue, the actual result is less than the budgeted amount. We anticipated 150 to be revenue, but we incur lesser revenue actual. That is why we are getting an unfavorable variance for the revenue, which is a negative amount. Variable expenses is a cost. This is favorable, obviously. Why? It is why? Because actually is lesser than the budgeted amount, which is a positive amount. Why? Why it is positive?
Because budget is more than you can reduce the cost.
No, this is a positive amount. This is a positive amount, but it is favorable. Variable expense is a cost. It is in positive amount, but it is favorable. Why it is favorable? Yes, operating income will be more. That is why it is a positive amount. That is why it is a favorable amount. Correct, cost. So if you look at revenue and cost, for revenue, unfavorable will be negative. For expenses, unfavorable will be positive or negative. This is cost, right? Once again. Let's go back to Hawk. Okay, it's my bad. This will be negative and this will be negative. Now tell me. For revenue, it is unfavorable because budgeted amount is more than the actual, or we can say actual is less than budgeted amount. That is why operating income is lower. For revenue, it is unfavorable because that is why it is a negative amount. Why negative amount? Because operating income will be lesser. For cost, it is a favorable amount. Why? Because actually is less than actually is less than budget and operating income will be high. But it is a negative amount. Now, why is it showing here different? That is why. Oh, that is why this is the problem is wrong. Okay. Because for cost, positive variance is unfavorable. So, but in the PDF it is positive rate. So you put, yeah, it is a positive amount. So it should be unfavorable. Yeah. Okay. That's why the question is wrong. Okay. Because here contribution margin is unfavorable, which should be negative. And here it is favorable. That is in positive. Actually, this should be if it is unfavorable, it should be positive. If it is favorable, it is negative. It should be negative. So I am right. Was right. Okay. Yeah, great. So sorry guys, the question is wrong. No, answer is wrong. Okay, answer is wrong. Question is right. Question is right. The reason because I'll explain to you. The reason is because then for that we have to go back to cockpit. If it is a revenue, if it is a favorable variance, it will be positive amount. Why? Because operating income is increasing. For a straightforward explanation, there is no confusion. Revenue. Because it is a favorable variance. Why it will be favorable? Because actual results will be more than the budget amount, obviously. That is why for revenue it is favorable. It will be in positive amount. For if it is unfavorable, negative. Because actually will be lesser than budgeted, it will be unfavorable. That is why it is a negative. Cost will be reverse effect. Cost is a positive variance. It will be unfavorable. Unfavorable means what? For cost, unfavorable means what? Between budget and actual. Unfavorable means what? Budget will be more. Budget will be lesser. Budget will be lesser and actually more. That means operating income will be lower. That is why it is unfavorable. But it will be positive amount. Looking at the maths. If you look at the maths, this is 100. This is 150. We are minusing and putting the sign of the greater amount, right? If you look at mathematics, this is 50, correct? But here, this is positive 100 and this is negative 100, 150. We are minus and plus is minus, but putting the amount of the larger amount. Yes, maths, you know all the maths? Yeah, minus, you know that? Okay, let's go back to the basics. Plus and minus, but this will be of higher amount. We're putting the minus sign of the higher amount. Minus, plus, plus. What else? That's it. This everyone knows? Yeah. That is the logic that they are trying to explain here. Cost is an expense. It is unfavorable because budget is lesser than actual. Actual is more. Operating income will be higher. Lesser. Operating income will be lesser. That is why it is unfavorable under cost. But the sign will be negative. Why? Because we are using the mathematics here. Lesser amount is of positive sign. Higher amount is of negative sign. Plus minus of the higher amount. That is what we do in basic maths. I think we should all agree. But if you don't agree, let's fight over it. Okay. Yeah, we will fight. Are you getting the logic here? That is why the question is wrong. Answer is wrong. This should be what? This is favorable, but it should be negative or negative. Then there is no point in going for whether this is correct or not. Then let's go back to the Hawk PDF only. Okay, so this solution is wrong, but the question is right. Okay, then let's go back to Hawk only. Hawk page number 297 and 296. 296, yeah. So units, this is between actual results and budgeted result. We are comparing 1 and 2 column. Units sold is 2,000 and 24,000. Obviously, it is unfavorable. It is a negative sign. This is positive amount and this is negative amount. Yes, we are minusing it and putting the sign of the higher value. Correct. Perfect. Revenue is favorable. Obviously, it's not favorable because this is positive amount, this is negative amount, and when we are comparing, it is we are finding out the difference. It is unfavorable. It is a negative amount. Coming to expense, cost, direct materials. It is favorable or unfavorable? It is favorable because actually is lesser than the budget amount. This is a positive amount, this is a negative amount. We are putting the value of higher amount, which is negative, but it is favorable. Why it is favorable? Because operating income is, obviously you can see operating income will be higher, but actually when you are minusing the whole expense, let's forget that result. End result, let's forget it, but looking at the direct materials, obviously it is lower and will bring operating income to a higher, but that is why it is favorable when we are comparing, because actually actual result is less than budget. When are you getting? Let me know when there is doubt. Yeah, because you are not able to see the PDF on our. So direct labor is an expense. Lesser actual is 396, budgeted is 386. Is a unfavorable variance. Why? Because actual is more. Can you see now?
Yes.
If this is more, this is less. We are minusing. We are putting the figure of the higher amount. Obviously, that is why it is positive. It is unfavorable because actual is more than budget. Then we get total variable cost, fine. Contribution margin is fine. Fixed cost is different from actual, different from budgeted. It is unfavorable, but it is in positive. Why? Because 500 is the higher amount. That is why we are putting the that sign of the higher. Operating income, when we are minusing all those expenses, what we are getting is a unfavorable. Why? Because cost is more. I mean, obviously the cost in actual results is more. That is why the operating income is lesser and static budget is more. That is why it is unfavorable variance. This is a positive amount. This is a negative amount. We are getting a negative value. Why? Because the amount here is higher. We are putting the negative sign of the higher amount, basic maths. So to not confuse that much, we have given here in this way. Positive variance for revenue will be favorable. Negative variance, it will be unfavorable. The reverse order for cost. Positive variance, it is unfavorable. Negative variance, it is favorable. Are you getting clear? Yes. This PDF is already shared with you, so you don't have to. This comparison is between actual and budget. Budget means static budget.
Which way is the one?
196 for the material that I shared. Now we come at level 2 variance. Okay. So level 2 variance is little tricky. It is also called as manufacturing input variance. Manufacturing input variance. Input means raw materials. Raw material means when at the time of producing raw materials, when we have direct labor, overheads. So all those things, when we add, then we get is the final output. So this is called as input. Inputs, what we receive, what we go give out is called output, or the final product, finished goods. So we have to calculate direct material variance, direct labor variance, and overhead variance. So total manufacturing variance. Okay. This direct material variance is of two types. One is material purchase usage variance. Material purchase usage variance. Second is material purchase price variance. Third is material quantity variance. Also called as usage variance. Also called as efficiency variance. Material quantity variance, material usage variance, and material efficiency variance. Then there is Then this quantity variance, then what we get finally is the total material variance. That is material purchase usage variance. That's all. That is price variance. Yeah, this is called price usage variance. This is called price usage variance, and this is material purchase price variance. Yeah. So this here is total. So after calculating all this, like 1, 2, 3, and 4, and this 1, 2, 3, what we get is the total material variance, which is material price usage variance. That is this amount plus material quantity variance. That is this amount. Material price usage variance and material quantity variance. What we will see total material variance. There will be multiple formulas, but you don't have to by heart the formulas. Every individual items will be having the same format. So you just have to learn the format and then apply to every input variances. Then we have is direct labor variance. We have to labor rate variance, and labor efficiency variance or usage variance. Labor usage variance or efficiency variance. Right. So when we add 2 and 1 and 2, what we get is the total labor variance. That is when we add these two amounts. What we get is the total labor variance. Then we have overhead variance. That is total variable overhead variance and total fixed cost variance. We can call it fixed overhead variance. Okay. Total variable overhead variance is of two under variable overhead variance. There are two. That is spending variance and efficiency variance. Spending variance and efficiency variance. So each of them are a different calculation, right? Then we have a spending variance for fixed overhead and production volume variance for this is another thing. So for fixed overhead, we have spending variance and we have production volume variance. All right, and then we have to learn about factory overhead variance, which is so whatever I explained. So this whatever I explained. This is level 3. This is level 3. And this is level 3. This is also level 3. Then we have 4-way analysis, 3-way analysis, and 2-way analysis. This is also level 3. Then we have sales variance. Sales variance is level 3 to be in total. So we have level 3 variance, and then we have flexible budget variance. We have flexible budget variance. This is level 2, not in depth. Then we have sales volume variance level 3. Don't confuse this with level 1. Okay, level 1 sales volume variance is between what? Level 1 sales volume variance is between flexible budget and static budget. This is level 3. This is level 3. In this, we have quantity variance and mix variance. Okay? Quantity variance and mix variance. This is level 3. This quantity variance is further into market share variance and market size variance. Market size variance. Okay, so if you look at the data, it's a little bit lengthy. Yeah, because we have direct material variance, direct labor variance, overhead variance, then we have 4-way, 3-way, 2-way, and then we have sales variance. And yeah. So the formulas are a little lengthier, but the questions that you have solved it is just substitute of figures. You just have to substitute the figures and again. Now, coming to direct material variance. Okay, we start with direct material variance. Direct material variance, as I said, you have material price usage variance, material purchase price variance, material quantity variance is also called as usage variance or production variance. Material price usage variance is the inputs that we use in production. Material purchase price variance is before the usage, right? When we are purchasing the item from a supplier, the price that we pay is called as material purchase price variance. So there might be 2 or 3 suppliers where they are charging different price for the same product. So obviously the budget will be different from the actual. So the concept, the purpose of knowing these different levels of variances is to go in depth and understand where these variances are occurring, why it is occurring, how can we stop this between actual and budget, why the budget amount we put is different from the actual. So to get an in-depth knowledge, we are diving deep into the total manufacturing cost and finding out the roadblocks or bottlenecks. That is the logic behind the going in depth, which is also called as management by exception. I will explain this in the last class. Management by exception, where investigation happens. If the variance amount is material, obviously we have to report it. We have to start digging deep to understand the root cause level of variances. We have to explain this is called as management by exception. Exception. This is very important. This will come in case. Let's get on with the question, and so I'll just explain to you the formula. So direct material variance, we are using material purchase usage variance. The formula is standard price or standard rate minus actual rate multiplied by actual quantity used in production. What is actual quantity? Direct materials input. Okay. Standard rate minus actual rate multiplied by actual quantity used in production. So typically what it means is, when we expand this formula, it is between this and this. Actual rate multiplied by actual quantity minus standard rate multiplied by actual quantity, right? This is the expansion of the formula. Means what? This is what? Which formula is this? For actual, this is the actual budget. And this is flexible budget. Right? So typically we are finding out flexible budget variance. Right? Flexible budget variance is difference between actual budget and the flexible budget. Same for in level 1. Same for volume variance is difference between static budget and flexible budget, level 1. Static budget variance is the difference between actual budget and static budget, level 1. We are level 3. Same concept. Actually, the formula for material purchase usage variance is the standard rate minus actual rate multiplied by actual quantity used in production. When we expand this, what we get is this. This is the formula for actual budget and this is the formula for flexible. So actually this is the difference between actual budget and flexible budget. So yeah, it's math. It's math. Well, now the questions are going to come from maths only. I will stop explaining concept. You have to solve it by maths. I mean, there is no concept here, only substituting the figures and getting the answers. So actual quantity used in production is what we have to find. Okay. Second is material purchase price variance. Obviously, it will be standard rate minus actual rate. Same formula, but the difference is actual quantity purchased instead of used. Purchased instead of used. We first purchase and then we use, right? So it is actually this is earlier action, earliest cost, early thing that happens. So when we purchase anything, any quantity, any price that is different, we find it by this variance. After that, we put it to use. That is when the previous formula comes. This. You're getting my point? So in the question, they will be asking, calculate the material price variance for which is earliest of the cost. So then which variance will calculate? This variance. Because purchase happens earliest through rest, right? Than usage. First we purchase and then we use. So we mentioned in the question that purchase price variance is to be used. Same, the same formula, there is no difference. Actual quantity and standard rate. It's between actual budget and static budget, flexible budget. Actual quantity, actual rate, standard rate, actual quantity. Simple. Then we have material quantity variance. Actual quantity minus standard quantity multiplied by standard price. Actual quantity minus standard quantity for standard price. When we expand this, it will be, I'm talking about imports, okay, not talking about the final production. We are just the material, we are talking about the material variance. So actual quantity is nothing but actual inputs allowable for actual production. This is the formula that we used. Actual quantity, actual inputs allowable. Because we are finding the difference between actual quantity of inputs. And then what about this standard quantity? Standard quantity of inputs allowable for actual output. This is for actual quantity. This is for standard quantity. So whenever you are seeing this formula, this formula, this is what it means. We are allowing the actual inputs. We are finding out the difference between actual inputs and the standard inputs used for the actual output, for the standard price. So typically this formula, actual quantity minus standard quantity for standard price or standard rate. This, when we expand this, it will be actual quantity multiplied by standard rate minus standard quantity multiplied by standard rate. This is flexible budget formula. This is master budget. So material quantity variance, we are finding out the difference between flexible budget and the static budget, master budget. Price variance, we are finding out the difference between actual budget and flexible budget. What is the difference in this concept? Because in purchase usage variance and purchase price variance, the actual quantity is same. This is the common thing. Here, why we are taking the difference between flexible and market and master? Because here the standard rate is same. We are adjusting flexible budget for the actual quantity with the standard rate, right? What is the formula for flexible budget? Actual quantity for standard rate. We are finding out the quantity variance. Quantity means the how much of the quantity is being used in the production, not the price. Price variance we are already finding out in the previous formulas. You have to find out the difference in the quantity used in the production. Because anyway, we cannot take a difference between flexible and actual. Why? Because between flexible and actual quantity is a common thing. How can you compare it? I get your point. If you keep it all these formulas together, this is the formula for price variance. This is the formula for quantity variance. This is the difference between flexible and actual. This is the difference between flexible and static. The reason why we are not interchanging is because of the common thing. We cannot compare actual quantity together. Are we comparing actual quantity here? No. We are comparing rates. We are not comparing actual quantity. We are actually comparing rates in price variance. In quantity variance, we are comparing quantity of inputs used. Are you getting what? That's the logic behind this formula. Let's not go and let's get back to the question. You solve questions, make it easy for you. Medina Company produces footballs. Each football requires a standard of 1 square meter of litter. So what is this input allowed? Input. Standard input allowed is 1 square meter. Right? At a standard cost of $5. So what is the data given here? So this is standard. Input allowed is 1 square meter. What is the rate? $5. So this is 1. Okay. During the period, now they are giving us the actual results. They produce 250 footballs, which is the actual output production. Finished products is 250 footballs, and used 290 square meters of leather. So in actually they have used 290 square meters of leather. This is the actual input. So actual is 290. The actual cost of the leather is $4. This is 4.7. This is $5. This is 290. Standard is 1 square meter per unit or per output. Then what should have? Then what is the standard quantity? Standard quantity. This is the actual quantity. 290 square meter is the actual quantity for allowed for actual output. What is the standard quantity allowed for actual output? What is the standard quantity of input allowed for actual output? 290. No, that is actual. Standard input allowed for actual output, how much is that? That is what standard quantity is. How much is the standard? 250 into the standard quantity of input allowed for actual output. Substitute 250. Substitute. How much is standard quantity input allowed? 1. Multiplied by 250. How much is it? 250. This is what? That's the standard quantity. Yeah. So this is actual. This is standard. Input allowed is 290. This is 250, obviously, because for 1 square meter of input allowed, actually we are producing 250. So that is 250 into 1. That is 250 square meters. Price. This is $4.5. This is 5. Calculate material quantity variance. Calculate material quantity variance. What is formula?
Actual quantity, standard quantity.
Material quantity variance. Quantity, not price. Quantity. What's the? I'm asking the formula. Quantity. Standard quantity minus actual quantity for standard price. 40 multiplied. Standard quantity is 250 minus 290 multiplied by 5. How much is the answer? $200. Favorable or unfavorable? There is a cost. Raw material is there's a cost. So cost increasing. So why unfavorable? Because cost increasing. That's correct. But why unfavorable? So look at the formula and think. Because it's minus. look at the figures. Figures. Because actually we are using more input. Actually is more input than standard rate. We are using more input means what? More cost. More cost means operating is coming down. Means what? Cost. Material, direct material is a cost. We are using more inputs. We are incurring more cost. We are getting lesser income. Means what? Unfavorable. Just because I type here favorable incentives. Simple. You just have to look at this proportion. This portion. That's it. Actual quantity is more than standard quantity. We are inputting more. More means more cost. More cost means lesser operating income. Lesser operating income is unfavorable. Now calculate for material price variance. This is the formula is same for price variance. Can you do it for material price variance? Material price variance. What is the formula?
4.5.
Standard rate minus actual rate for actual quantity.
So 5 minus 4 is 0.
Actual quantity of inputs, okay? Not output. This is actual quantity of inputs. We are calculating it manufacturing input variance. So standard rate is what? $4.5 minus actual rate. Yeah. 5 minus 4.5 multiplied by 290. The first element is unfavorable or favorable? Favorable. Perfect. I don't have the answer. It is why it's favorable? Why it is favorable? Because the actual is lesser than standard. Actual is lesser than standard. That is why it is favorable. And the answer? I think it's 141, 145, 145. $145 favorable. Why? Because actually is lesser than standard, yeah. It typically means that somewhere down the line, the purchasing manager has purchased an item, the inputs from a lower quality. We can assume value for it.
We get offer.
Yeah, maybe get offer. He got a lesser price. He used a substandard material. You can say that. That is why the purchase price is favorable. Okay. Coming to the problem now. Can you solve this? It's straightforward. Actual production budget for is 8,000. The production is 7,500. Direct material purchases pounds 25,000. Total cost is 35. Direct material is used in production. Yeah. You can calculate material. Yeah, they are asking for material quantity variance. What is the formula? Actual quantity minus standard quantity for standard rate. What is the actual quantity of inputs used? Is there any other 3 pound which has direct material standard for one of its product? 3 pounds for 3 pounds at 1.6 per pound. Okay. Actual quantity of inputs allowed for actual output. actual quantity? Still, no, I want the this thing. Figure. On the figure. Actual quantity is this or this. Input, we are talking about input, right? We are calculating input variance, manufacturing input variance. So I have already explained actual quantity is actual quantity of input allowed for actual output. How much is the actual quantity of input allowed? How much have they purchased?
Purchase is
25,000 units allowed. Standard quantity. So this 25,000 is representing actual quantity. And standard quantity is representing standard quantity of inputs allowed for actual output. Yes. What is the standard quantity of input? This is 7,500. Right? That is 3 multiplied by 7,500. Just see which is 7,500. How did I get this? Standard diabetic standard for one of its product, 3 pounds they are using. 3 pounds of that material is allowed for actual output. This is the actual output. So 25,000 minus 3 into 7,500. And what is the standard rate?
1.6.
1.6. And the answer comes here. What is the answer? Now, is it favorable or unfavorable? This is actual quantity, this is standard quantity. I think this is for per pound, right? This is per pound. So they are using for 3 pounds. So not for quantity. Because we are see. This should be 4.8. Why? Why not 1.6? Because 1.6 for 1 pound. We are using 3 pounds here. I remember. this question. Three formulas used from the actual production average. 7,000.3 should grow by 5,000. There is a confusion with the question. Again, this I have a doubt on this question because they wanted the actual data here. Now let's keep this on, okay? But you got the logic right. Keep the question on hold. I think this is question number 33. Can you solve this? They are asking for material efficiency variance. Again, material quantity variance. Can you solve this? I think these are straightforward. Actual units of inputs, actual units of outputs. So it's clear. How much is what is the actual quantity? That is output. How we are calculating for input. There is no calculation for output. We are calculating manufacturing input variance. We don't care about outputs. What is the actual quantity? Actual quantity of input allowed for actual production. We only care about input. This will be 190K. This will be 78K.
They are asking about
yeah, the standard inputs allowed per unit. This is 1 per unit, right? Per unit is 10. And so 1 unit is they're using for 10. So for 20,000 units, it's 200,000. That's this is in total. How much is yeah. This is the total amount, total input. This is they are using only 10. So actually they are using only 19,000. Out of the total, 1,90,000 is the total. If we divide this by 10, we get 19,000 as the actual inputs. Standard quantity will be here. For actual output of 20,000. 1 unit they are using 10 inputs. So now how much is actual actual inputs? That is 1,19,000. 19,000 inputs. For standard, it's how much? It's 4. 4 inputs. 4 inputs per unit. 4 inputs. That is 78,000 divided by 4. We get 19,500 of inputs. What is the formula? Actual quantity of input minus standard quantity of inputs for actual output. That's the formula, right? For standard rate. So this is 19,000. This is 19,500. Standard rate. Standard rate is 20. Standard rate is 20.
No, that is material, not the 24.
Yeah. Direct material efficiency variance, right? Okay. So why they are given direct material efficiency variance then? This is input. Standard input allowed for actual output is 20,000 into 10. Okay. So that is 2 lakh. Okay. This is standard. This is actual output. This is standard input. We get 2 lakhs. 2 lakhs multiplied. Okay. That's okay. I got it. Yeah. I'm sorry, I didn't see this was direct labor. Okay. This we have to ignore.
Yes.
Now tell me the actual quantity and the standard quantity. Okay, this data. This data is only given for confusing. This data we have to ignore.
Maybe not.
Yes. Actual quantity is of input is 1,90,000. Standard quantity is what?
Yeah.
Standard input allowed for actual output.
2 lakh.
Standard input allowed for actual output. Multiply. 2 lakh. Then what is the formula? Actual quantity minus standard quantity for standard price. Actual quantity is 1,90,000 minus 2 lakhs for standard price, that is 24. How much is the answer? 2 lakh
2,40,000.
40,000? No, 24,000. 24,000. That is favorable or unfavorable?
24. 2 lakh.
Budgeted favorable. Because they use this than expected.
Inputs used in actual is lesser. That's why cost is lesser. Operating income is higher. Is favorable. Answer? It's not 24,000. It is actually 2,40,000.
2,40,000.
See, they are given purposely to confuse you. C or D?
It's D. D.
D? D is the answer. I didn't see this actually. I thought this was actual. This was standard. No,
they are.
yeah. I mean, I came into an assumption like that. But yeah, this is not even required for this question. Can you calculate material purchase usage variance? What is the formula? Actual minus standard rate for actual quantity. What is the answer for this?
This is
Actual
price.
rate is 28
Price
minus 24. What is actual quantity used? 1,90,000. What is the answer for this? So, favorable or unfavorable?
unfavorable.
Unfavorable. Because the actual rate is more than the standard. Very good question. Yeah, same. Can you solve this? Material company established annual direct material budget to 300,000 units as per. No, this is. No, this is not confusion. Can you solve this? They're asking material purchase price variance and direct material quantity variance. Material purchase price variance is actual rate minus standard rate for the actual quantity purchased. Efficiency variance is
Quantity.
actual quantity minus standard quantity
Standard
for
rate.
standard rate. For standard rate. What is the actual rate?
$297,000 divided by 75,000.
Okay, first calculate for PPV, that is actual rate. What is actual rate? How do you find out actual rate? This divided by this. How is that? Three point five six. 3.56. This is the actual rate. 96. Minus standard rate.
No.
What is that?
This is for
Standard rate. 4. Actual quantity purchased 75,000. Yes, 75,000. Actual quantity purchased. Because they are asking for material purchase price variance. Answer $3,000. Favorable or unfavorable? Favorable. Why? Because actually is less than standard. So this is over. Right? Now quantity variance. Quantity variance. Actual quantity. $35,000.
Yes, actual
Purchase. We are not even used. We're taking inputs allowed for actual production, not used. We're not saying inputs allowed. We're not saying input used. We say inputs allowed for actual production, right? So 75,000 minus what is standard quantity?
$26,000 units.
And that is our output. How much you want? 3,000, right? So it's either B or C, no? Yeah. 3,000 favorable you want, yeah. Okay. So it's either B or C. Answer. So this is actual quantity, standard quantity. Standard quantity of input allowed for actual output. That is a formula. Standard quantity of input allowed is where? You got the question. This is the actual output. So then standard input allowed.
Output.
Standard quantity of input allowed for actual output. 3 into 23,000. That's it.
6,000.
That is right.
What is the standard rate?
How is standard rate? This or this?
Not well.
That is output. 12 per output, na? We need for input. That is $4. Where is the confusion? Where is the confusion in the code? Where is the confusion in here? 12 is for per output. We are finding out for input. You have to look only at the input rate. They have already given me a material cost standard for each output. 3 pounds of input allowed. That is 3 pounds. 3 pounds allowed for actual actual production. 3 pounds allowed for actual production. 23,000 multiplied by 3, we get what standard quantity of inputs allowed. Per pound it is costing 4. That is this formula. 75,000 minus 69,000 multiplied by $4, we get $24,000.
This
Favorable or unfavorable?
unfavorable.
This is actual, this is standard. Unfavorable. Why? Because using more in production. This is unfavorable. Answer C. C is the answer. Read out.
I did it.
What?
I did it.
Yeah. Smarts. Smarts. I didn't see anything. Actually, I didn't say at all anything. I just only just explained the formula and then left it to you. You just have to substitute the figure or something else. Is there any, what do you call, like, differential equation going on? No, nothing. Trigonometry? No. It's a basic things. Nothing. Once you understand the formula, what are they asking? They are asking for actual rate. They are asking for standard rate. It's already given in the formula that actual quantity per purchase is to be used. We find out the actual purchase is already given in a standard. Actual quantity, you might have a confusion here. Actual quantity and standard quantity. Because actual quantity of input allowed means what? How much are the inputs we are allocating for the production of 23,000 of output? How much is the input we are allowing, we are putting in to the production of 23,000? That is what we are finding out. It's already given the purchases. We are already purchased 75,000 units. Yeah. Standard quantity. What is standard quantity? As per the formula, standard quantity of input allowed for actual output. So how much is the standard quantity of input we are putting in for producing 23,000? It's already given at 3 pounds. 3 pounds, if you multiply by 23,000, we get the total standard quantity. Substitute the figure and get the answer. That's it. I mean, there is no rocket science going on here. Practice. It's the only thing that is keeping you from understanding. Solve as much as solution for problems as you can, and that's it. I don't see any problem here. Unless you practice. He's done. Too much of thinking in one day. Close the books and going home. What about the 190? No sound at all for the 190. Actual quantity is 23,000, not 25,000. Yes. Yes, Mohsin, you are right. Actual quantity is 23,000. Yes. Actual quantity is material quantity variance. We are taking the inputs. This here. This is production. This is output. Okay. I think one of my students is done. Let's go home. Online team, I don't see any voice at all. They still alive. AD Rahim, Mohsin, and AB. SM. Okay, I hope I'm clear. If you want to solve, we can solve another problem. Please, Martin, let me know. Yeah, can you calculate this? Can you use solve this? Can you answer this question? It was 4,000. And standard. Yes, it was standard. 4,000, it was unavailable. 4,000 unavailable. Actual quantity? 35,000. Not actually, it's out. Standard quantity of input is 25,000. Actual quantity of input 27,000. Yeah. And multiplied by standard rate. 4. 8,000. Okay, perfect. So practice a lot. Okay. Yeah. We'll share questions. I'll tell him to share more questions. Sure. Thank you guys. Thank you so much. I think we are all tired. Sure. Thank you so much. Thank you guys. Thank you.
The recording has been stopped. Joining. Goodbye.